So today marks the 11th year since I finished my first chemotherapy. It's April the 13th, it's kind of my second birthday, and I thought it's a good idea or a good date to reflect a bit what I learned in the past 11 years and what tactics I used to cope with my cancer. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Martin. I got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2012, and since then I'm living with and against all odds with this illness. I had many surgeries, chemotherapy. I tried a lot of different alternative methods. I did a lot of inner work, I did a lot of body work, and I'm still fighting with it. I'm not healed. My cancer is growing inside of me. Luckily, let's touch some wood. It's slow. We hope it stays like this. This moment I'm talking to you, I had my last surgery a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and I have some small spots left in the liver and in the lung. And so that's not good news, and it's not an easy situation. So I want to talk about how I cope with this situation, but also maybe a little bit what I learned during all the past 10 years, and maybe I can share some insights that you also find very, very helpful. So the first and foremost learning from the past 10 years is that I realized I make a lot of thoughts about my illness. I have a lot of stories about my illness, and these stories, they are not always helpful. The stories are often dramatic. They are induced and colored by fear, which I think is very normal. I think it's normal that we experience fear. I mean, come on, it's like a very dangerous situation, so we are all humans. I also experienced a lot of fears, and the stories I tell myself, they are often affected and influenced by this fear. So putting this on the table, I think there comes the first learning or trick or method that I use, is that I question those stories. Not in a sense if they are correct or if I allow myself to have them, more if they are helpful. So I ask myself, is this story helpful or not? Is it constructive or not? Is it wholesome or not? And if the answer is yes, well, then I go with it. I think then it has a positive effect on my journey, on my body, on my healing. But if the answer is no, then I try to let it go. I try to not think too much about it. And I make you a good example. Now at this moment, yes, I have some spots inside of me, and I have my next scan in a few weeks. And when I start thinking about that, I get very nervous. My thoughts go to a place of like, oh, what if it happens like this? Maybe you know yourself, like the inner wheel starts spinning. And I realized it's not helpful because it's so a future situation that we don't know what the results are going to be. The only impact it has on my life now is that I don't feel good. And if you're interested in this, like how the brain tells stories, and these stories are not always true, I discussed this in my book Dare to Live in chapter 28. I dive a bit more in detail into it, why the brain is doing that, why it's an advantage for the brain to tell yourself stories, but also why it's good to question from time to time these stories. So that's my first learning, that I question my story in my head, and I really try to shift my focus on the stories that are helpful and wholesome, and I try to get rid of the stories that are not. And it's not, I think that's important, it's not something that you have an inner switch and you just like, okay, the story is gone. It's a skill, and you will see the more you train and the more you learn to do that, and the more you try it out in a playful way, you will become better. And one way to let the story go is when you try to shift focus from your brain and from what's going up in your coconut and you go to your body and you ask yourself, okay, how does my body feel? And that's actually the second big learning from my past 11 years fighting with this illness, is to connect with your body and get a sense and the sensitivity for what you need. And what you can do in order to train that is you can ask again a question. You see, I love questions. I think questions are very, very good tools. You can ask yourself, what do I need now? What does my body need? Do I need to make a break? Do I need to see some friends? Do I need to distract myself with work or with entertainment or with whatever? And it's not only what your body's craving for, like pizza and tiramisu, it's also like really what do you need in a long term? What does your body support and what is good for your body? And get a bit of catalog of different creative ideas. Going out is always a good idea. Going into nature is always a good idea. And yes, you guessed it right. I also discussed that, how you can learn that in my book. In chapter 18, it's one of my favorite chapters, and it's called "If you don't feel well, then do something with water." Water is a very interesting element. Our body is made out of water by 60–65%. And so there's a lot of research that when you're doing something with water, close to water, in the water, under the water, on top of the water, it has a relaxing and stress reducing effect on your body. And that's what you want. You want to reduce your stress, because stress is very, very bad for your immune system. And that's the first point I made with the story. The story is stressing you out, and the stress is like supporting your cancer. So that's not what you want. So you want to reduce the stress. So doing something with water, drinking water or coffee can be very helpful, or going for a dive, or going for a swim, or going for a walk next to a river, or listen to the water. That is something that can be very good. And yes, it's what I'm gonna do now, or in the next few days. I'm gonna fly to the south, to Italy, to my boat current event. I'm gonna meet Felix, and we're gonna sail for 2 weeks. And I know this is so much better for my healing and for supporting my body myself than going into the story of what the next scan is gonna bring. So that's my birthday reflection. I'm curious to hear what tactics you have to dealing with this story in your mind, or with what your body needs. Please let me know in the comment, and I'm looking forward to talk to you next time, probably from the boat. So I wish you everybody a good day, and go easy but go. Cheers.